Welcome back to Hollywood Fame Files, and this is movie remakes you may or may not have known about. Let's get into it. First up, did you know that Bedazzled is a remake? The original was released in 1967. It's a British movie starring Dudley Moore and Peter Cook. 33 years later, in 2000, the remake starring Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley was released. The main idea for the film was based on a sketch that Cook and Moore had previously performed on their popular BBC TV show. In the remake, Brendan Fraser hurt his back in the basketball scene because, as previously mentioned in my video about him, he did all of his own stunts. The two dogs in the movie were named Dudley and Peter. Sound familiar? Harold Ramis, the director, does that also sound familiar? Played a cameo. Next up, The Running Man. First released in 1987, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. The movie is loosely based off a book by Richard Bachman, which is actually just the alias of Stephen King. He was so unhappy with the changes from his book, he used his alias in the credits, even though by the time the movie came out, everybody knew it was Stephen King. The remake is actually way more faithful to the book. The announcer heard at the end of the film is voiced by Roger Bumpus, who is best known as the voice of Squidward Tentacles in SpongeBob SquarePants. The remake was just released recently on November 14th of this year, 2025. And was filmed in about 168 locations, making the world the arena rather than a studio. More fun facts? Glenn Powell contacted Arnold Schwarzenegger, who gave him his full blessing to remake the film. Did you notice that Arnold's face is on the currency used in the remake? Tom Cruise gave advice to Glenn Powell, saying, "You should film yourself running because you don't look as cool as you think you do." The original Dune was released in 1984. A lot of the movie was filmed in Mexico to cut costs, but it came with risks. The crew suffered from widespread illnesses and straight-up bad luck, like food poisoning, cockroach infestations, power outages, and smog, causing several production delays. Before Kyle MacLachlan was cast as the main character Paul, actors like Val Kilmer and Kevin Costner were considered for the role. For the princess, played by Virginia Madsen, the original choice was Helena Bonham Carter or Jodie Foster. Michelle Pfeiffer and Meg Ryan were also in the running. There is also a Dune Part 1 from 2021 and a Dune Part 2 from 2024. Fun facts about Part 1. To achieve a sense of realism and scale, the majority of the film was shot on locations in real deserts like Jordan and Abu Dhabi and the coast of Norway. The cast filmed in grueling conditions with temperatures reaching up to 120 degrees. Stellan Skarsgård, who played Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, spent 8 hours in the makeup chair every filming day. He reportedly took Imodium to avoid having to use the bathroom while in the full-body suit. The original 13 Ghosts was released in 1960. The film's primary attraction was a theater gimmick called Illusion O. Audience members were given a handheld viewer, kind of like these, as they entered the cinema. The film was shot in black and white, but scenes featuring ghosts were double exposed, with the ghost printed in red against a blue background. If you were brave enough to see the ghosts, you would look through the red filter. To make the ghosts invisible if you were too scared, you would look through the blue filter. The remake was released in 2001. They kept one key element from the 1960 original. Remember these? Instead of the audience wearing them, the characters in the movie are the ones that wore the glasses to see the ghosts. The original War of the Worlds was released in 1953. The film won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. It is considered one of the greatest sci-fi films of the 1950s and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2011. The distinctive oscillating sound effect of the Martian heat ray weapon was created by mixing the sound of 3 electric guitars being recorded backward. This unique sound effect was later widely reused in other sci-fi works, notably for the sound of Star Trek's photon torpedoes. The eerie scream the Martian makes in the farmhouse basement was created by combining a woman's recorded scream with the sound of a microphone scraping along dry ice, then reversing the recording. The cartoon character Woody Woodpecker makes a small, lucky cameo appearance in a treetop in the background as the first Martian meteorite ship crashes. Producer George Pal and Woody's creator, Walter Lantz, were close friends. Most of the soldiers shown in the movie were not actors. They were actual National Guard troops performing real military maneuvers, lending authenticity to the large-scale military response scenes. Since then, there has been a 2005 version, starring Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning, and a 2025 version starring Ice Cube and Eva Longoria. For the 2005 version, during the massive Erie plane crash scene in Ray Ferrier's neighborhood, the production crew didn't use CGI. They purchased a retired Boeing 747 airliner for $2 million, dismantled it, and scattered the actual parts across a set built around existing houses. The wreckage is still on the Universal Studios Hollywood backlot tour for visitors to see. During the underwater filming of the capsized ferry sequence, director Steven Spielberg lightened the mood by playing the iconic, tension-building Jaws theme music through massive underwater speakers, pranking Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning. The original Flipper was released in 1963. The co-creator of the story, Rico Browning, got the idea for Flipper after seeing his children watch the TV show Lassie, which inspired him to create a similar boy and animal story with a dolphin. Browning used his last $100 in 1961 to write the book that became the basis for the movie and persuaded producer Ivan Tors to read it. Tors liked it enough to make the film. The main dolphin who played Flipper in the original film was actually a female named Mitzi. While Mitzi was the star, a total of 5 dolphins were used for the film's production. The iconic chattering voice of Flipper in the subsequent TV series was not a real dolphin sound, but actually the electronically modified song of a kookaburra. The remake was released in 1996 and starred Paul Hogan and Elijah Wood. This time, the title role was played by 3 real-life dolphins named Jake, Fat Man, and MacGyver, and an animatronic dolphin. Throughout almost every scene in the film, Elijah Wood's character wears a t-shirt for the band The Smashing Pumpkins, as he is a real-life fan of the band. Luke Halpin, who played the character Sandy in the original 1963 film and the TV series, makes a cameo appearance as one of the villains in the 1996 version. Paul Hogan's method of using a blowtorch to toast bread in the film was a recreation of a gag he had previously performed on his 1973 variety show, The Paul Hogan Show. Before their more famous roles, actors Jonathan Banks, later of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and Isaac Hayes, later known as the voice of Chef on South Park, appeared in the film. 1951 was when the original Angels in the Outfield was released. Much of the movie was filmed on location at Pittsburgh's Forbes Field and Wrigley Field in Los Angeles, using actual game footage to make the baseball scenes more authentic. Due to the Hays Code's prohibition of profanity in films, the character Guffey McGovern's frequent foul language was conveyed using audio gibberish created by scrambling recordings of the actor Paul Douglas's voice or covering it with sound effects like airplane noises. The film was reportedly the favorite movie of U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower while he was in office. The remake was released in 1994. The film is famous for featuring actors who would later become major Hollywood stars and even win Academy Awards, like Matthew McConaughey, Adrien Brody, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Walt Disney Corporation, which distributed the film, was the minority owner of the real-life California Angels baseball team at the time of the film's release. Just 2 years later, Disney bought the entire team and owned it until 2003. The original Arthur was released in 1981, starring Dudley Moore and Liza Minnelli. The writer and director, Steve Gordon, originally wrote the role of Arthur with an American actor in mind, considering stars like Al Pacino, Jack Nicholson, and John Belushi. Dudley Moore convinced Gordon to let him use his natural English accent, arguing he'd spend too much time trying to perfect an American one. Some fans theorized that the British accent made sense, as Hobson, the British butler, likely raised Arthur and taught him to speak. Moore reportedly based part of his performance on his former comedy partner Peter Cook, whose own excessive drinking had strained their relationship in the 1970s. Moore himself later clarified that while he was not an alcoholic, he would have liked to be more like the character in his lifestyle, just less drunk. The film was the sole directional effort of writer-director Steve Gordon, who sadly died of a heart attack at just 44, shortly after the film's release. The sequel was dedicated to his memory. The remake was released in 2011, starring Russell Brand and Helen Mirren. This film attempted to make Arthur a more sympathetic character, unlike the original, where Arthur drank for fun and coping. This version gave him a specific Freudian excuse. His frugal father died at a young age of 44, a homage to the original film's director, Steve Gordon, who also died at 44, which led Arthur to believe taking care of himself was pointless. Russell Brand, a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, played a character defined by his drinking. He stated that this was not an issue for him during production, but he would sniff alcohol before scenes to remind himself what it was like to be drunk for his performance. Comedian Ricky Gervais was offered the lead role of Arthur, but immediately turned it down, stating, "Why would I mess with a perfect comedy?" The original Seabiscuit was released in 1949, just 2 years after the real Seabiscuit passed away. The title role of Seabiscuit in the color footage was played by two of his real-life sons, C. Sovereign and C. Gamble. To depict the actual famous races, the film incorporated real black and white, and some color, newsreel footage of the real Seabiscuit in action, including his legendary 1938 match race against War Admiral and the 1940 Santa Anita handicap victory. This movie was the second-to-last film role for the former child superstar Shirley Temple, who was 21 years old at the time of filming. The remake was released in 2003, starring Tobey Maguire. The movie portrays Seabiscuit's rival, War Admiral, as a massive horse, nearly 18 hands tall. In reality, War Admiral was actually the same height as Seabiscuit, about 15 hands, though Seabiscuit was more muscular. This change was made in the film to visually emphasize the underdog dynamic. The horse that played War Admiral in this film was a real gelding named Verboom, who was a direct descendant of the actual War Admiral. In the film, Red Pollard, played by Tobey Maguire, dramatically confesses he is blind in one eye to his trainer. In real life, Pollard kept his blindness a secret until after his racing career was over and he was no longer famous. The original House of Wax was released in 1953. This film launched Vincent Price's career as a horror icon. While not the very first 3D movie ever made, House of Wax was the first color 3D feature film released by a major American studio, helping to popularize the format across the country. Vincent Price's scar makeup was so convincing and gruesome that he was reportedly banished from the studio commissary. He recalled that the girl at the register turned green and almost fainted, and the other patrons left, resulting in a bad day for business. The dramatic museum fire in the opening sequence got wildly out of control, putting a hole in the soundstage roof. Because the melting wax figures were so expensive and difficult to replace, the director kept the cameras rolling, capturing genuine alarm on the actors' faces even as the firemen arrived on set. The remake was released in 2005. The town of Ambrose, where most of the film takes place, was not a real location, but a massive fully functioning set built from the ground up in the Australian wilderness over 10 weeks. The set included water, electricity, and 750 individual controllable streetlights. The film's marketing famously capitalized on the casting of Paris Hilton, a divisive celebrity at the time. The controversial tagline was "See Paris Die," and Hilton even sold t-shirts with the slogan. Her death scene was reportedly met with cheers in some theaters. The main killer is named Vincent, a clear homage to Vincent Price. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me, and be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on part 2.